Today we are going to talk about collections, what collections are, and what are the different types of collections available in Salesforce. Collection is a very, very important topic in Salesforce. So please understand this very with all your heart and mind focused on this video right now. If you have any questions, you can put that in the comment section or reach out to me on thetrailmaker.com and I'll be happy to answer any of your questions. Talking about collections. So collections in any programming language, you would find some or the other sort of collection. In native Java or languages like C++, C, the collections are, the main sort of collection is called an array. In Salesforce, that array is a little enhanced and it's called as list. So the first collection that we are going to study today, it's called a list. So what basically happens is a list is a collection, a lot of variables of the same type. So let's say if you are going to create a list of integer, so let's say you want to create 10 integers. So how would you, this is one way of doing it. Call it integer A, comma integer B, comma C, comma D. E, and so on and so forth. You can keep on going that way, right? You can have like, but after 26 integers, you would run out of A, B, C, D, E. Then you might come up with AA, and then you might come up with AB and AC and O. And but it would be very difficult to remember all of these variables and which variables represent what. But what you can do is you can very easily create a list of integers. List of integer, and you can call it an int list or integer list, whatever you think you want to give the name. I'm just giving int list for now, and that's how you can create a list of integers. This list of integers basically can have n number of integers stored within this list. There's no limit as such defined of how many numbers you can store within this list. So this is a very powerful thing to use. And as we have seen in the previous video, when we were talking about for loop, within a single line of statement, we were able to write 100 integers. Same way, this list is a very powerful element in Salesforce. And trust me, without list, you cannot do anything in Salesforce. So collections as altogether are very, very important in Salesforce. So please understand this. I'll bring the slide up now, and this basically shows you the visual representation of this list of strings. So basically, and this particular screenshot is pulled up from us from the Salesforce website itself. So if you look here, what basically is happening is this is a list of strings. I showed you how to create a list of integer. In the same way, you can create a list of string. And you can call it string list. For any particular data type that we have studied so far, you can create a list of that. That's how you write lists. So it has to be, you call it a list, and then it has to be within less than and greater than sign. So this is the opening part of the list. This is the closing part of the list. And you can create list of any particular data type within Salesforce Apex like this. Here I was showing you the visual representation of list of strings. So basically what happens is in a list of string, let's say we want to store these 6 values. So like red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple. So one way of storing these colors in Apex Salesforce could be like that you could say string blue color, and then you store it as something like this. This is one way. And similarly, then you will create 6 variables and you would call it red color, blue color, and so on and so forth. Or you create just a single list of strings and call it color list. And here you can store all these 6, more colors in this list. This is a memory representation of how your list looks like in the memory. Remember, we studied random access memory, RAM, when we understanding how computers work. So this is how it would look like in memory, and this is very important for you to understand how a list will look like in the memory. There would be indexes. First element in a list would always start with 0. We don't start from 1, we start from 0. So the first color that you would add to this particular list of string would go at index 0. And then the next color that you would add to this list would go at index 1. So the next color that you would add would go at 1. The next color that you would add it goes at 2, and so on and so forth. So it keeps on increasing by 1. So it is very, very important that you understand this. So if we are putting these six colors in the list of string, then the first one that we would add would go at index 0, then 1, then 2, 3, 4, and 5. This basically means is that if you want the first color to come up, then you would do something like this. Or there's a method available for this which is given to us by Salesforce. You can do this as well. Both are okay. Both are compiler will accept both of these. So you can use either of them, and this would actually give you the value of whatever the variable is stored at that particular index. Now we see it is giving us an error, especially on this line, because this is an expression. This is not a statement. So we would have to, maybe just call it string, something like that, and then it should allow us to say. So that is the difference between when you put something like this rather than when you put something, when you use this method. Obviously, when you use a method, it is more error friendly and it saves you from the error like we saw, which came early. But still, that was a way of explaining you that you use either this or that, and what is the difference between these two you just saw on the screen as well. Coming back to this, so basically, a list is a collection where you put multiple variables of the same data type. So in this case, all the values that would go in this particular list would be an integer. All the values that could go inside this list could be a string. And similarly, you can create other lists as well. And all of the variables that would go inside this particular list would have an index. So you're like index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, based on when they are added to the list, right? So based on how they are added to the list, they would be assigned 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 values. So this is a list. Let's talk about other collections as well, and then we'll see how we add values to this particular list. Actually, let me just show you. I've been talking about this. So basically, this is just the declaration of a list. In order to actually initialize this list, what we'll have to do is we'll have to do a list. Again, the same thing, string, and we'll have to pass the constructor. So basically, for the time being, just understand that this is how you create a list in Salesforce. So basically, you define this, give the data type here, and then you give your list a name. Then on the equal to side, you write new, and then you give the list string. This is exactly same what you write on the left, but this is added with a parenthesis. So what this thing basically means? So this thing basically means is, so let me comment it, otherwise it will give an error. So this basically is called the constructor. So constructors, I read about them so far, so I'll explain it to you now. So constructors are basically a method which generally has the same name as the class name. So, in this case, this is the class and this is the constructor. What the job of the constructor is? The job of the constructor is to go into RAM and assign a memory to this particular variable that we are creating. That's the job of the constructor. In older programming languages like C++, C, this constructor didn't used to be there, and hence this constructor wasn't there, and hence all your variables would initially have a garbage value inside them. So it is like a random garbage value which stays inside them, and if you try to access that, it will give you an error. Same way, if you don't do this, and just put this, it will give you an error. When your Salesforce will run, it will say null pointer, and that's exactly that's a very bigger problem when you write code. So always handle your null pointers in your code, right? It is very important. So whenever you create any variable at any point in time, it's called a best practice that you initialize that variable. So this particular step is called initialization, where in the memory, you say that you are constructing this particular variable, cleans that garbage value from the memory, and it has a valid value. But even if, without adding anything, if you try to do this or this, you're still going to get a null point. So be very careful how you handle it. We'll see that in the upcoming, codes when we write more complex code in Salesforce. But for the time being, understand this. This is how you handle, this is one of the ways of handling null pointer. So it is very important that you construct your variable without constructing this. If you try to call it like this, it will give you an error. It won't run. So that's one way of constructing your list. There's another way of constructing your list. If I just copy and paste, let's call it the name list. And this is the standard way of doing it. There's one more way of putting values inside your name list. So, now we are going to see how we actually put the values inside this particular list. So let's say what we are going to do, then you're going to put curly braces inside the parenthesis because it is a string. So we are going to put single quotes and we are going to say, let's say, the trail maker, right? So if we need to initialize our string here, which is the name list with a couple of names right here, we know what all names are coming. So then basically we'll remove this parenthesis, we'll put a curly brace here, and then we are going to put the name. So the trail maker, that could be one name, and the other name could be Himanshu, and so on and so forth. You can keep on adding multiple names here. I'm just adding two for now, just to show you how it looks like. And if I do system.debug, I'll show you multiple debugs so that you understand what basically is happening. So this is one way of debugging. So this way, all the values inside this list will show up here. But if your list is too big, then it won't show all the variables. Your system.debug will truncate and it will say dot dot dot. But if you, so then we do a get 0. And why get 0? Because our list starts at index 0. This is what we understood here. So in list always starts with 0. So hence we are putting get 0. And I'm going to show you the other way around as well. So I'm going to put 1 here. So because we only have two values here, hence 0 and 1. If we would have more values, we could have done it that way as well. We could have added more values here. Right now, if I do open execute, open log and execute, and we have got an error. Why we have got an error? Because our color list does not have any values and we are asking code to get 0 in here. So like, see, that's one of the errors that you get to see, right? But don't worry about that for now. I've commented that out. See, so the name list initially gives the Trailmaker and Himanshu together because that's how the whole list is coming. I mean, this is showing you the complete list with all the variables inside. Then the name list with get 0 gives you the Trailmaker, and the next one, which is value 1, gives you Himanshu. You understand why Trailmaker got at 0? Because that is the first value we are putting inside the name list. Himanshu is the value which is gone at the second time. Hence, it comes at index 1. So how you put it, based on the way it is added to the list, it would come in that sequence. And this is very important for you to remember. We'll see better ways of debugging this particular list. But for now, let's just understand using this get 0 and get 1. So I hope you would have understood what lists are so far. In the next video, we are going to understand the second part of the collection, which is a set and a map. We understood how to create a list and how it looks like in the memory. Now we are going to understand how you can create a multi-dimensional list. So multi-dimensional list is basically like a list, and then inside this you create another list and something like this. So this is called a multi-dimensional list. Multi-dimensional list. This is another way of using lists. So you can, it's a list of lists. That's how it is called in code. So basically, what we see here is that this is a list, and then there are multiple lists like this inside that main list. So there's a list here, and then list zero, and then the zero has a list, and list one has another list, and list two has another set of. So it could be like how you would address this particular thing. So you would address it in this way. So like zero and then zero, something like that. And then you could do 0.1. That is one way of getting it. And then the other could be 1.0. So basically what is happening is list zero and you're getting the zero value, list zero and one value here. In the third line, what we are doing is one and zero value. And similarly, you can have two, one value, two value, three value, four value, so on. Basically, this value can increase and this value can increase as well. It might look a little complex to you for now, but you will understand it as we'll write more code in the upcoming videos. But basically, it's kind of a matrix thing that is being created. So you can traverse through like this and you can traverse through like this, right? So if I show you, so basically, if we have like a table like this is your list zero, this is your list one, and then again, this is your zero, this is your zero, this is your one, and this is your two, and this is your three. So like when we call a list of lists is, so this is one list, what we saw here in this. So this is your list one. If I, so this is what we were creating originally, which is this list. So that's how it would look like in if we would try to represent it in a graphical form. So this is a list. Now when we are creating a list of lists, so this is how it looks like. List zero, list one, and list two. And what we can do is list zero. So that exactly what we are doing, list zero. And then we are calling the value at zero, value at one, value at two, value at three, and it can go on further down. And similarly, this can go on further down as well. So this is kind of a matrix that we have created. This way, you can go up to 8 levels in Salesforce Apex, and you can create list of list of list of lists that way. I'm just taking this off for now, saving that, and so I hope you would understand how we create list of lists. We are going to understand set, and then you can create a multi-dimension of list, set, and map together as well. To be honest, I have used only a combination of list or a map together or a map of list together. You will rarely go more than two-dimensional in Salesforce because the business logic, when you try to implement it, it doesn't get, the data model doesn't get more complex than this. Just understand what I've shown you right now, and I think you should be able to sail through 90 to 95% of your business logic using list of lists. There's, so this is one way of adding values to the list. There's another way of adding value to the list, and that could be something like this. So name list.add, and here you can say maybe John. And again, you can add. So this is one of the methods, just like get. There's a method called add, and then we can have Gina. That could be another one. And if we do a system.debug name list now, I'll just save it and I'll do execute last. So if we see it now, so here you see that, and it is all getting added to the end of it. So like I said, in the order it is added to the list, it will come up at that particular index. So this is index 0, 1, 2, and 3. Total values are 4, but it will go up till index 3 because we start at 0. This is very important. We always start at 0 in a list. If there are 4 values inside a list, your highest value would be 3. Please remember this because you might need to use this in your for loops, when to exit your for loop. Otherwise, if you try to address list.get4, you would get an out of bound error like we saw earlier. So please, that is very important. Remember that your list index starts at 0, when to exit your for loop. It is very important to remember. So this is about lists. In the next video, we are going to talk about set and maps.